This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
This episode of Hitched to Homicide contains descriptions of extreme domestic violence, child endangerment, animal cruelty, and graphic post-mortem mutilation, including references to dismemberment and cannibalism. Listener discretion is strongly advised. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-SAFE. That's 800-799-7233, or visit hitchedtohomicide.com/resources.
February 29th, 2000, St. Andrews Street, Aberdeen, Australia. It's a small town where everybody knows everybody, and secrets are hard to keep. It's home to a woman with a history of violence that sounded less like warning signs and more like sirens. She was explosive, obsessive, terrifying when crossed, and on a hot summer night, she slipped into black lingerie, seduced her partner, and then murdered him before skinning his body like an animal. It was a crime scene so brutal, even seasoned investigators struggled to process it. This isn't a story about passion. It's not a story about love gone wrong. It's a story about control, obsession, and a woman whose violence escalated until one man paid the ultimate price. This is Katherine Knight, the butcher, the lover, the killer. Hey y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Potter. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our friends over there in Paraguay.
Yes.
Egua haipora.
Very good. I don't think we've ever heard that one before.
I had to practice a few minutes. It's first it was like egg pie, what?
Well, wherever you are listening, be sure to subscribe to Hitched to Homicide, then like, rate, and review the podcast so other people who are just like you and love true crime can find us.
Yep.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button right there below.
Mm-hmm.
If you want true crime with us all the time, please go join our closed Facebook group, the In-Laws and Outlaws. All you got to do is go to H2H, In-Laws and Outlaws in Facebook, and answer a couple questions, and we will let you in.
Come on in.
And we're just getting all kinds of new people in there, so welcome to all the new people.
Yes, new peeps.
I like to post photos and other information. That's our family. We love them very, very much.
Yes, we do.
You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide. I'm forgetting. At Hitched to Homicide.
Who are we again?
Or on X at H2H_podcast. And we also have a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to send Rob some coffee. We've even had people ask about his whole setup. They want to know, what's the coffee machine? What's the coffee brand? I did pass it along for him.
Yes.
And I will post it in the In-Laws and Outlaws if you guys are really that interested.
It's really good coffee.
You can find that link in our show notes in case I didn't say that already. And if you want to send us a message, all you have to do is look at the very bottom of the show notes and you'll see a little link where it says, send Chris and Rob a text or a message. We love to get them.
Yes, we do.
Well, this case is brutal. It's scary.
I couldn't guess that from the intro.
It's warning signs all over the place. If you want to tap out now, go for it. It's brutal.
All right.
But this case was suggested by John in Australia, who, by the way, we have a lot of listeners in Australia. So,
love Australia.
Good day.
My very first book report that I ever did in my entire life was in 3rd grade, and it was on Australia.
Well, there you go.
And I always wanted to go, and I never got to go.
Well, that doesn't mean we can't.
I know, someday.
Someday. I think we should put that one on the bucket list. I would love to go. But John in Australia wrote to us and said, if you ever entertain the thought of skipping across the ditch to Australia, this case might be of interest. Cheers and beers,
Nice.
John.
That's not a knife.
So, John, this is me skipping across the ditch, baby. And cheers and beers back to you.
We'll have a cheers and beers on you.
Yes, we will.
There you go.
Before we get started, let me thank some sources: Wikipedia, Murderpedia, ABC News Australia, UTS, not U2S, Law Article, Parliament of Australia, Crime and Investigation, The Lineup, the New Zealand Herald. Y'all, I'm on the struggle bus today. People, Facebook, Reddit, and Crime Stories, just to name a few. I'm going to slow down so I don't get so tongue-tied.
All right. Well, you ready?
I don't know if you're ready for this.
I am. Let's do it.
Katherine Mary Knight was born on October 24th, 1955. She's one of twin girls, and she's born in New South Wales, Australia, Tenterfield to be exact. She's going to grow up in Aberdeen, which is a small town that is known really for the Aberdeen Meatworks, or the abattoir plant.
Okay.
They butchered and cut up beef cattle and pigs for human consumption. Right out of the gate.
Okay.
It's bloody right out of the gate. Katherine, well, her friends called her Kath. Lots of people called her Kath, so that's what I'm going to call her.
Okay.
Kath's early life is steeped in violence. Most people didn't call her Katherine, like I said, but before Kath is even born, her mother Barbara left her marriage with Scottish-born John. He went by Jack Rowan. They already have 3 sons before Barbara starts her affair with abattoir worker Ken Knight. So Ken just so happened to be a friend and co-worker of Barbara's husband, Jack. And she's having an affair with him.
Okay.
And she gets pregnant and has twins. And Katherine Knight is one of them.
Okay.
Now, a little bit about Katherine's mother, Barbara. Her great-grandmother was an Indigenous Australian from the Moree area who had married an Irishman, and Barbara took a lot of pride in being from an Aboriginal family. But it's kept a secret because at the time, racism was pretty prevalent. And I did read that Barbara's ancestry would become a source of tension for her children, and she's got a bunch of them. Katherine's mom has a bunch of kids. And the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree because they're not all from the same husband. No judgment. Not a big deal. She's going to follow in her mom's footsteps.
Gotcha.
So Kath and her twin sister are both a product of this affair and not their mother's legal marriage. And this is a bit of a scandal in their family. But Barbara and Ken didn't care, and they continued their relationship while Barbara is still married to Jack, the other man.
Man.
The friend of Ken.
Okay.
They did move to Moree, and none of Barbara's sons went with her. And the twin girls, the 2 oldest boys, stayed with their father, and the 2 younger ones went to Sydney, where an aunt raised them. And then the 2 twins went with their mother, Barbara.
Gotcha.
Now, after Kath and her twin sister were born, Barbara and Ken will go on to have more kids.
Wait a minute.
Ken and Barbie. I knew you were going to say it.
It took me this long to go, wait.
I knew you were going to say it. Ken and Barbie.
All right.
In 1959, when Kath is only 4, her mother's husband died, and the 2 older sons moved in with Barbara and Ken, with Barbie and Ken. Now, her father, Ken Knight, was an alcoholic. He's extremely violent. He sexually and verbally abused her mother, Barbara, often. And he forced Barbara to have sex, get this, 8 to 10 times a day.
Holy cow.
Who has that kind of time?
Good Lord.
I want to know. Who has that kind of time every single day?
Why, they're just running down the hall, meeting each other?
I don't know. I don't know. In fact, these two are known locally for their heavy drinking, their domestic assaults, and their open talk about sexual matters, meaning Barbara, Catherine's mom, she spared zero details when she would tell her young daughters about Ken raping her and how she hated men and sex. Well, sister, if you're having sex 8 to 10 times a day, I could see where it would get old after a while.
Exactly. Gee whiz.
Kath will later say that she was sexually abused until she was 11 years old by family members, but not her father, Ken. Apparently, he's too busy abusing her mother, Barbara.
Sounds like it.
Kath is never going to feel close to anyone other than her twin sister and her uncle Oscar Knight. He was a champion horseman in Australia, and when he died by suicide in 1969, when Kath is only 14, she is devastated. And the family then moved to Aberdeen that very same year. Kath and her sister attended Musselbrook High School, where she's pretty much a loner who was known to be a bully, especially over kids who were smaller than she was. And while she's in school, she actually assaulted a boy and was once injured by a teacher who said it was self-defense.
Oh, man.
But when she wasn't in this blinding rage and hurting people, apparently she earned awards for her good behavior. But when she had one of her dark moods, everybody steered clear of Katherine Knight.
Wow.
And many in Aberdeen actually called her the Black Knight.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But all this violence and sexual abuse in her home would lead to Kath's extreme mistrust in men. And when she asked her mother, who was always talking about the sexual abuse she was enduring, when she asked her mom, she tells her mom that at the time her sexual partner wanted her to do something sexually that she didn't want to do. And her mother told her, just endure it and stop complaining. Suck it up, Kath. This is the way it is.
Wow.
At 15, Kath dropped out of school, and when she does, she cannot read or write. She's basically illiterate.
So at 15, her mom's telling her to suck it up?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, her mom's telling her way more than that even before she's 15.
Understood, but gee whiz, at 15, you're like, okay, well,
Yeah, you don't want to just suck it up, honey. This is the way it is.
Oh, man.
But she leaves school at 15. She's basically illiterate. She goes to work as a cutter in a clothing factory at first, and then she moves on from cutting fabric to cutting meat. Her mother's husband, Jack, worked at the Aberdeen Meat Works. It's an abattoir. That means that it's a slaughterhouse, and he's an abattoir worker. And so did her father. So did Barbara's first husband and Ken. They both worked there, the abusive Ken.
Right.
And when Kath started working there in 1971, it was her, quote, dream job, end quote.
Wow.
Some say it was because the local abattoir was a hyper macho environment and she could hold her own with the men. Now, I give her props for that. It's a man's world. Get in there, girls. Make yourself known. But maybe not the way Katherine's doing it, okay? According to the people who knew her in town, this was in a documentary I watched, she wasn't, quote, the sharpest pencil in the box by any standard. She didn't have great conversational skills up at the pub where she'd go, end quote. But apparently she had some sort of allure to her sexuality. She was picking up men right and left. She's like a magnet. She's a dude magnet, right?
Jeez. Wow.
Kath has her dream job, and she started out cutting up the internal organs of the beef cattle to make something called offal. And I was like, I can't think of a better word for it. It's OFFAL. But she's really good at it, and she quickly advanced and received her own set of butcher's knives, moving to the boning department.
Okay.
She was a really good boner.
We can just move on.
And Kath loved her new knives so much, she would hang them over her bed, quote, so they'd always be handy, end quote.
Ouch.
She also liked to have one last look at them at night before nodding off to sleep. So I usually have one last look at my husband, Rob, or one last look at Scotty, who's like sleeping in between us and pawing at me for something before I nod off to sleep. She liked to look at her knives.
To each his own, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kath had a very quick temper. She liked to be physically intimidating, and she would threaten to beat or kill people all the time if she felt as if they were disrespecting her. She's got a chip on her shoulder, right?
Yeah.
So she's working at the slaughterhouse. She's moved into the boning department. She's basically an expert boner who could wield her knife very much like a, quote, magic wand, end quote. She's really good at this.
Okay.
That is her work life. In her personal life, she would have more than a few men, but all of her relationships were basically the same. At first, it was just like intense attraction. Then she would become crazy possessive, and then she would turn to violence. Makes me think of the Glenn Close and
I will not be denied, Dan.
Dan. Exactly. Mm-hmm. What's that called? Why can't I think of the name of it?
Fatal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction.
Yeah.
Very much Fatal Attraction because it's intense attraction. Then she gets crazy possessive.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me reiterate that. I will not be ignored.
I won't be ignored, Dan. That's what it is.
That's the line.
Yeah. I won't be ignored, Dan.
Man.
God, she was so good in that, and she so deserved an Oscar for it, and she did not get it. But just like crazy woman in Fatal Attraction, Kath would beat her partners. She'd threaten them and then leave these men terrified for their life. This is a woman who's good with knives, and these men are absolutely afraid of her.
And they worked with her, too.
And a lot of them are going to work with her.
Jeez.
Well, I think most people worked at this abattoir. It was really the one big thing that they had going on in Aberdeen at the time.
Okay.
But let's meet some of Katherine's men. First, there's David Stanford Kellett. David is a truck driver, and as soon as Kath turns 18, she moves in with him. In 1974, they get married. It's said that Kath completely dominated him. If David got into a fight at the pub, Kath would step in and finish off his fights with her own fists. Honey, I'm sorry I'm not fighting people at the bar for you.
We may have a skirmish at Kroger every once in a while, but not at the
pub.
That's
just the night before Thanksgiving. I only throw elbows right before a holiday, okay? Man. At the grocery store. That's it.
Don't touch that cabbage.
It's like the Hunger Games out there if you've ever had to go out right before a holiday. And maybe I do throw a couple elbows in the produce department to get the last green bean, but
she doesn't.
Things have to be done.
A woman's got to do what a woman's got to do.
Choices were made.
Exactly. Good Lord.
But both David and Kath are big drinkers, which is just a recipe for disaster, right?
Yeah.
So they're big drinkers, they're big fighters, and the relationship is just saturated with alcohol and brawling. But David married her because Kath wanted to get married. She's like, I want to get married. We're getting married. And he's like, okay.
Okay.
So the happy couple arrives at the church on her motorcycle, by the way. She's driving the motorcycle.
Come on, you're making all this up.
I am not. And David's on the back like me, or like those Harley riders when you see the shirt that says, if you can read this, the bitch fell off or something like that. Yeah. Don't we see that sometimes? Yeah. And as soon as they arrived at the church, they pull up on her motorcycle. Kath's mother, Barbara, had some heartfelt advice for her soon-to-be new son-in-law.
Here it comes.
Now, we have a son who's engaged to be married,
Yeah.
and we will probably dispense some sweet advice before he walks down the aisle, like, happy wife, happy life, or something like that, right?
Exactly.
But this was Barbara's advice to David. Quote, "You better watch this one or she'll f***ing kill you.
Oh, my God.
Stir her up the wrong way or do the wrong thing and you're f***. Don't ever think of playing up on her. She'll f***ing kill you. She's got a screw loose somewhere." End quote.
Well, that would make me want to walk down the aisle.
Best wishes
Yeah.
to the happy couple.
But welcome to the family.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Can you imagine?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. That's my daughter there.
Yeah.
Don't come up on her now. She's got a screw loose.
Man.
And buddy, Barbara wasn't lying because I'm not even going to whisper it. And that's called foreshadowing.
I don't even want to play the piano on that.
Don't do it. It's fine.
Wow.
On Kath and David's wedding night, she tried to strangle him. Why, you might ask? Because he fell asleep after only having sex with Kath 3 times.
Oh, my God.
And she'd heard some story about her mother and father who had like sex 16 times or something on their wedding night. And David conked out after 3 goes. And David's defense, in his defense, he had been drinking for like 2 days.
You know what this reminds me of?
What?
Coming to America, Eddie Murphy, when him and his buddy
Arsenio Hall,
they're in the bar, and the big girl goes, "I need a man who can put overtime for my..." That's what this whole thing reminds
Well,
me.
Katherine needs somebody who's ready to put in the overtime.
Oh, man.
These two are apparently madly in love in the beginning, but it's only going to last about 18 months, and then the honeymoon is over. And by this time, Kath was convinced that David was cheating on her, or he wasn't spending enough time with her. And I read that everything with Kath was about revenge and entitlement. David takes a job at the slaughterhouse. So he was a truck driver, and he takes a job at the slaughterhouse. So why not spend even more time with a woman that is just meaner than, I don't know what, at you? She's just mean. She's mean to him.
Yeah. Once again, another movie, Beverly Hills Cop. It's when Nick Nolte, and it's just before they go in the hotel and they all get shot up and everything. And Nick Nolte asks the other cop, he goes, "How's your wife?" And he goes, "Mean as a snake."
Yeah. Well, Katherine Knight was mean as a snake.
Yeah.
She's meaner than a snake. Now, David, who was in the beginning a truck driver, he takes this job at the abattoir because now he's spending even more time with her.
Right.
And David was in charge of killing the pigs. And from time to time, Kath would drop in and watch him at work, killing these pigs with a stun gun. And there were people who worked there at the slaughterhouse that thought her hanging around while the pigs' heads were being taken off was a little bit weird because she really seemed to like watching it a little too much.
Wow.
When Kath was very pregnant with their first child, David came home late one night from the pub. He'd been in a darts competition, and he's late because he reached the finals. And a very angry Katherine burned all of his clothes and shoes, and when he arrived home, she hit him over the head with a frying pan.
This sounds like a movie.
Well, it's going to get worse. It's going to be a horror flick in the end.
Wow.
When she hits him over the head, David runs to a neighbor's house, and he collapses there in their home, and he tells them he was afraid for his life. And he was later treated for a severely fractured skull.
Jeez.
And the police wanted to charge Katherine, but she basically sweet-talked David into dropping the charges. "I'm sorry, honey. I didn't mean it."
I didn't mean to hit you in the back of the head and crush your skull with this frying pan.
And now I'll meet you in the bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
And you better be ready, David.
And don't fall asleep or I'll use the other frying pan.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord.
In May of 1976, shortly after their first child, Melissa, is born, David leaves Katherine for another woman, and he moved to Queensland to get away from her. He could no longer deal with her possessive and violent behavior. The day after he left, Katherine was seen pushing the baby in a stroller down the main street, and she's violently tossing this stroller from side to side. And she's going to be admitted to the St. Elmo's Hospital in Tamworth for postpartum depression, and she's going to spend about 8 weeks there recovering. But then after she's released, like right after she's released from the hospital, she gets this baby back. She's got her new baby, who's now 2 months old. She places 2-month-old Melissa on a railroad track just before a train was due.
What?
Yep. And then she walked away, and she stole an axe from a nearby yard and went into town swinging it and threatening to kill anyone who came upon her.
Wow.
Now, a local man that everybody referred to as Old Ted rescued Melissa from the train tracks just minutes before the train passed. And Old Ted was a local homeless man who was scavenging near the railway line, and he sees this baby and he takes her off the tracks.
Wow, thank God for Old Ted.
And as you might imagine, Kath was arrested and once again admitted to St. Elmo's Hospital psychiatric floor, but the next day she deemed herself recovered and signed herself out. Then after signing herself out of the psych ward, she attacked a woman with one of her knives, slashing her face, and tried to force her to drive to Queensland because she was going to find David, her husband. And this woman managed to escape at a service station. But Kath then grabbed a young boy and held him hostage at knife point until the police got there. And they disarmed her. The police disarmed her by using brooms.
Okay.
She doesn't have a firearm. She can't shoot him.
Right.
So she's just got her knife. So they come after her with it's like breaking up a dog fight, right? You got to get the broom out.
Did they sweep her off her feet?
Apparently they did.
Oh, okay.
Because after this, she was admitted to Morrisette Psychiatric Hospital, where she told the staff that she intended to kill her husband, David, his mother, and the mechanic who repaired his car, which gave him the means to drive away from her to Queensland.
Wow.
And at the service station where she made the first woman and she took the hostage stop, you know, when they make the first stop and she takes the hostage.
Right.
That was where the mechanic who fixed David's car was.
Gee whiz.
So she's not just going after him and his mother, but this poor guy who just fixed his car so he could get the heck fire out of town.
What's that thing? The 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or something?
Yeah, well, apparently it's 7 degrees of Katherine Knight.
Yeah. Wow.
So when the police tell David about this whole ugly incident, he leaves his new girlfriend that he has, and he and his mother both move back to Aberdeen to support Kath.
What?
Or did they move back to keep baby Melissa safe? That was kind of my thought.
Okay.
On August 9th, 1976, Kath was released into the care of David and his mother, and they all packed up and moved to a suburb of Brisbane called Woodbridge. She took a job at the Dinmore Meat Works in Ipswich, and on March 6, 1980, David and Kath had a second child, another daughter, Natasha. So she's out of the psych ward. She's back with David and David's mom and her baby, and now she's had another daughter. And she's working at a new meat plant, at a new slaughterhouse.
Okay.
4 years later, in 1984, it's Kath who leaves David this time after years of fighting and screaming. And according to Katherine Knight's family, when she was done with a man, she was done. And as long as it was on her terms, she would just let that person go. So it seems to me the way to get out of it is you want Katherine to hate you and be done with you.
Right.
There's nothing that you have that Katherine wants anymore. So, but that's not going to happen.
Okay.
For the next 3 men.
Uh-oh.
At first, she moved in with her parents in Aberdeen, and then she rented a house in Muswellbrook, and then she returned to work at the Aberdeen abattoir once more. But in 1981, she injured her back and went on disability. And since she didn't need to be near the slaughterhouse anymore, the government of Australia gave her a housing commission home in Aberdeen. Then in 1986, 31-year-old Katherine meets David Saunders at a local hotel. David is 38 years old and a minor. David is known to be a decent enough guy. His biggest flaws are that he drinks a lot, and he spent most of his time at the hotel scoping out sex workers. Now,
other than that.
Yeah. Now, it's only been a few months since she left old David for new David.
David 2.0.
Exactly. But new David is smitten. And the fact that Kath has this voracious sexual appetite is just like icing on the cake for him. He's like, this is great. This is awesome.
Is she good looking, or what's she look like?
She's not. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Sure.
I wouldn't say she's a cover model. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
And there are some really beautiful women in Australia and some gorgeous models that come from there. But she's not going to ever be a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. But who is?
Right, right. She might be on the cover of Sports and Slaughterhouse, but that's about it.
She would love that, I would think. She would probably love that. A few months after these two meet, David number 2, new David moves in with Kath and her 2 daughters. But David Saunders was from Scone, a little town called Scone, and he kept his place there. He had a flat there. And he kept that flat even though he moved in with Kath in Aberdeen. And as you might imagine, jealous Kath did not like this. This made her highly suspicious of David number 2. What was he doing in this flat without her?
Yeah.
She would become so enraged, wondering what was going on when he wasn't with her, that she would repeatedly kick him out during their fights, and then drive to his flat sobbing and begging for him to come back. And this is going to happen all the time.
Wow.
And again, as I said, David Saunders, David number 2, is a big drinker, just like David number 1.
Sure.
And again, Kath would finish new David's fights with her own fists. So she's still backing up her man. Don't mess with my man.
Yeah.
I can beat him, but you cannot. That's basically what she's saying.
It's too bad the MMA wasn't around.
She would have been great.
Yeah.
Yeah. In May of 1987, well, wait, where's Scotty? Because I don't want him to hear this part.
I don't see him, so
okay.
He's not here.
In May of 1987, Kath, in order to prove to David what she would do to him if he ever cheated on her, she took one of her knives and she slit the throat of his 2-month-old dingo puppy in front of him.
Are you serious?
I am very serious. Then she knocked him unconscious with a frying pan. She likes to use domestic objects as weapons when she's angry.
Wow.
But despite all of this, David Saunders stayed. And in June of 1988, Kath gave birth to their daughter, Sarah. And when Sarah is born, David puts down a deposit on a house, and Kath paid off that deposit with her workers' compensation payout, and now that property is tied to her forever and tied to David forever. So it's all about control with her, right?
Sure.
But these two are constantly arguing. Surprise, surprise. There were repeated fights, threats, and physical attacks, and the whole time, David is just trying not to piss her off. He's walking on eggshells because he's afraid he will trigger her. But they share a home and a child, and this made it hard for David to just walk away. I mean, he was still a good guy, and he's like, I can't just walk away from my child.
Sure.
Now, when he puts this deposit down on this house and she pays it off, I read that she decorated this house with, get this, animal skins, skulls, horns, rusty animal traps, leather jackets, old boots, machetes, rakes, and pitchforks.
Sounds lovely.
There was no space, including the ceilings, that was left uncovered. And don't forget, she got her knives hanging over her bed.
Oh, man.
But eventually, David number 2, he's going to walk away because these two are going to have a huge fight. And during the argument, Kath hits him in the face with an iron, like a clothing iron. And then she stabbed him in the stomach with a pair of scissors. And he waited until the next day to secretly seek medical assistance at work, because if he had done it that night, it would have made Kath so angry. He was afraid that she would hit him with something else or stab him again.
Good grief.
And after this, he finally moved back to his flat in Scone and went into hiding because he was afraid of Katherine Knight, although I think he did come back to get his things and found that she had cut up all of his clothes. Then he came back months later because he wanted to see his daughter. And when he does, he finds out that Katherine Knight had gone to the police and told them that she was deathly afraid of David. And the authorities granted her what's called an AVO, an apprehended violence order, against him.
Wow.
She's turning the tables on him when he's the one who went into hiding.
Yeah.
She also vandalizes his car, which makes me think of Fatal Attraction all over again.
Sure.
But she was apparently done at this point with David number 2. Good for him, right?
He got out. He didn't get out unscathed, but he got out.
But he got out. Then she began a relationship with John Chillingworth. John was a 43-year-old worker she knew from the slaughterhouse who was a recovering alcoholic. And these two still had fights, but not like the ones she had with the two Davids, who were both big drinkers.
Right.
Now, these two are going to stay together for 3 years. And in 1991, Kath will have John's baby, a boy, that they named Eric. He is her very first and will be her only son. But in the 3 years they are together, Kath started having an affair with another John, John Price. John Chillingworth found out about the affair, and Kath left him in order to be with her new lover. So she had David 1, David 2, then she had John 1, and now she has John number 2.
Jeez.
John Charles Thomas Price, who was known to most as, you're going to love this, Pricey. His last name was Price. They called him Pricey.
Pricey.
He was a very well-liked, easygoing father of 3 and a longtime resident of Aberdeen. And Pricey's marriage ended in 1988, and while his 2-year-old daughter stayed with his former wife, the 2 older children lived with him. And Pricey was well aware of Katherine Knight's violent reputation. But these two were in love, I guess, or perhaps it's Kath's alluring sex appeal that trapped Pricey.
Yeah.
But she moved into his house in 1995. John Price was born April 4th, 1955. He was a hard-drinking, hard-working guy. He was always the first at work. He was a miner, and no matter how much he'd had to drink the night before, he was always the first one at work. He was reliable. He was a, quote, bloke who loved a beer and a smoke, end quote. Cheers and beers, right?
Exactly.
And Pricey's children, they actually liked Kath at first. And even though he knew about her violent past, he allowed her to move into his house with him and 2 of his kids, which was a mistake.
Yeah.
These two liked to have a good time and drink, and their friend group was very much like them. You know, they were big, hard partiers who were, quote, fast-talking, swearing, tough people, end quote.
Man.
So not only are they swearing, they're swearing quickly.
Yeah. Wow.
They all used rough language and were loud when they threw a party. And everybody would know when that party was going on, apparently.
In the whole city.
Apparently. The whole of Aberdeen knew that Kath was having a party.
Wow.
There were a few violent arguments, but Kath and Pricey's life together was said to be great at first. But Katherine wanted Pricey to marry her, and he did not want to marry Katherine Knight. At one point, he'd either tried to leave her or he'd stayed at the pub too long. And to get revenge, Kath, who owned a video camera that she apparently loved to use, and she was determined to hurt Pricey because he wasn't doing what she wanted, marrying her.
Right.
Well, apparently Pricey worked again at this local mine, and according to these detailed case retellings, he fished an old, out-of-date first aid kit that had been thrown out and into the garbage. He fishes it out of the garbage and takes it home.
Okay.
It was no longer compliant, and it was just being trashed. So Pricey fishes it out, takes it home. And this is about the same time that he is telling Katherine it's over. He wanted her out of his house. So to get back at him, she takes out her video camera and she filmed items around the house that could be made to look stolen from his workplace, including this first aid kit that he fished out of the garbage.
Wow.
And then she sent this to his bosses at the mine. Then she invited them to Pricey's house. It's not even her house. She's just living in his world, right?
Mm-hmm.
She invites his bosses over to his house to show in particular this first aid kit that she said he had stolen. And even though it was in the trash, management treated it as theft and they fired Pricey.
Wow.
He had worked there for 17 years and had a 6-figure salary, and Katherine Knight blows it all up because she's mad that he won't marry her, and he's told her to pack up her knives and pack up your knives and your panties and get out.
Yep. It's like Eddie Murphy.
Exactly.
Get up.
Yes. And I think this first aid kit was worth $20 or something.
Jeez.
Stupid. But Pricey kicked Katherine out of the house on the very same day this happened with her videotape and her video recorder, and everyone in town knew what she had done to him. And he's a guy that everybody loves, right? He's that guy at the pub that everybody loves. He's Pricey.
Yeah.
Then 3 months later, Pricey restarted the relationship. But he refused to allow her to move in with him again. And I'm just thinking, was the sex that good, really?
Wow.
It's like, I want to get back together with you, but you're not moving into my house.
Right.
And his friends were really angry with him for getting back together with her. And they basically didn't want anything to do with him if he was going to be with Katherine Knight. And he couldn't even drink at his pub. Couldn't even go to his favorite pub and drink. He had to change pubs because his friends didn't want to be around him because they thought, Pricey, you're just asking for it.
Yeah.
And with his friends telling him to get rid of her, he makes the decision he has to break things off with Kath. So was it his friends, or was it that he wanted to go back to his favorite pub?
Yes.
But he's like, I'm done with her.
Yeah.
And he knew it wasn't going to be pretty, and he knew it wasn't going to be easy. And John Price had confided in his friends and bosses every time Katherine would beat him or yell at him. And he would call them and say, this is what's happened. And if something ever happens to me, quote, I want you to bear witness to what's been going on with me for the last couple of years with this witch of a woman, end quote.
Well, didn't his bosses understand, though, when she was showing him all that stuff, that this was probably a ploy of hers?
No, I think they just thought, you can't steal things from the mine, and that's company policy, and they were going to go by the book, maybe.
Wow.
And he'd been there for 17 years.
Yeah. And the fact that that stuff was in the garbage, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, they didn't know when he took it. She could have said that he took it way before it was out of date and thrown in the garbage.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when Katherine knows that it's going to be over, she called the police during a bad fight. And when they arrived, John Price tells the authorities, I want her out of my house. To which they said to him, you need a court order to get her out. And this made Pricey really mad. It's his house, and she didn't even live there on a permanent basis. She'd already moved back to her own place. Remember, they broke up, and he kicked her out, and then he took her back again.
Yeah.
Then on February 27th, 2000, Kath and Pricey have a huge fight. She held a knife up to him and she stabbed him in the chest. A smaller, non-lethal jab, but a stab all the same. So he went across the street to his friend's house, a bloke's house, another bloke's house. That's what I read.
Yeah.
And he told them, she's coming after me with a knife. And the next day, the police come to the house with an AVO, or like a restraining order here, or protective order, that by law they had to take out because she called the police that night and accused him of being violent toward her again. Wow. She keeps turning the tables. I'm just this frail little woman with all these knives. And don't forget, don't look at the fact that I've fought every man in town.
Yeah. I mean, didn't he show the wound that she inflicted?
Apparently not.
I just don't understand.
But again, it's his house, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Now, the next day is a Monday, and he goes into work, and his boss can tell that he's really upset. And his coworkers had never seen him like this before. He actually takes a job at another mine, right? Okay. So after he took a huge pay cut, apparently. Wow. And they asked him what's going on, and he sat down and he told them all that Katherine had said and done to him, the threats, the beatings, the knives. And then he said, quote, "I reckon she's going to do me in," end quote. The next day is February 29th, Leap Day. John Price goes to court. He sits down with the chamber magistrate and tells him that the night before at 2 a.m., he wakes up and Katherine is standing at the foot of the bed with her hands behind her back, and he jumped out of bed because he believed she had a knife behind her back. And it was only when he got closer to a mirror that he could see the reflection that she didn't have anything behind her back. So she's just taunting him, right? Yeah. But he still cannot get her out of his house. Man. So he takes out a restraining order against her to keep her away from him and his children. Right. So that's the angle that he went at when he went to the magistrate. I don't just need her away from me. She can do she can say that she doesn't want to be close to me. I don't want to be close to her, but I don't want her close to my children.
Exactly. Okay.
Later that day, he went across the street again to see his friend, and he takes with him 2 beers and cheers. And he tells his buddy, if you see my van in front of my house in the morning when you get up, I need you to call the cops. When you get up to go to work and my van is still outside, you call the cops because she has done me in. Wow. And his buddy and his coworkers tell Pricey, don't go home. Just don't go home to her. Stay away. Yeah. And he told them that he had to go home because he was afraid she would do something to his children.
The question isn't whether the world is changing. It's whether you'll be ready for it. At Arizona State University, your education is built around the careers of the future. You learn from renowned faculty and researchers who are driving their fields forward, not just teaching about it. It's why we're ranked #1 in innovation and #2 in employability among U.S. public universities. Future-proof your career. Explore more than 350 programs at asuonline.asu.edu. That's a degree better.
That same day, Kath did some shopping. She went out and bought black lingerie. Then she got out that video camera that she loves so much, and she videotaped all of her children while she made comments that were kind of bizarre at the time. But in hindsight, it was kind of like a crude will. It was sort of like, I leave you this property. I leave you this. I leave you that, right? And she's doing it all on tape. Right. When John Price got home, he found that the kids weren't there at all. Katherine had sent them off to a sleepover with her niece, to her niece's house. Okay. And he goes to bed at 11 p.m. Now, God love his heart, I wish he'd been sleeping with one eye open. But after 11 p.m., Kath came into John Price's home while he's asleep. She sat and she watched TV for a little bit. Star Trek.
A Trekkie.
Was just a detail I had to put in. Then she takes a shower and she put on her black sexy lingerie and she wakes up John Price and they had sex and then he fell asleep. And when John goes to sleep, Kath gets out one of her freshly sharpened butcher knives from the bedside table. John gets up to go to the bathroom, and then he lays back down in the bed, and she stabs him. He wakes up and tries to turn on the bedside light, and John is trying to escape, but Kath chased him through the house. He managed to get to the front door and get outside, but either he stumbled back in or he was dragged back into the hallway, where he finally died after bleeding out.
Wow.
Katherine stabbed John 37 times
Holy cow.
in the front and back of his body while he tried to get away.
Oh, man.
Now, if you want to get out of this podcast now, this is the moment to get out, okay?
Can I go get a sandwich?
Warning you. You cannot get out. Anybody else can get out if they want to.
Oh, man.
When he is dead, she methodically skinned his body, taking off the entire skin, including the face, ears, scalp, and neck in one continuous piece, like a suit.
Wow.
She left one small square inch of skin on his body. It was the scar from where she had stabbed him before.
Wow.
She then chopped off the skinned head and put it in a pot on the stove to cook. Then she cut up vegetables and then cut 5 steaks from John's buttocks and cooked them in the oven and plated them with vegetables for his children.
What?
Then Katherine showers, changes her clothes, and drives into Aberdeen and withdraws $1,000 from John's bank account through the ATM. Then she goes back to his house and takes a bunch of pills and lies down on the bed. At 6 a.m. the next morning, John's neighbor sees that his van is still in the driveway, and when he didn't show up for work, his employer sent a worker to his house to see what was wrong. Can you imagine? Everybody at work knows how he's just being abused, and they're like, hey, you, go to the house and see if you can find him. And it's like, I don't know what I'm going to find. Why do I have to go?
Yeah.
But both the neighbor and the worker tried to knock on John's bedroom window to wake him up. But they can see blood at the front door, and they called the police, who arrived at 8 a.m. And the police are thinking at first, Pricey, they know this guy. Pricey's just tied one on last night, and he hasn't woken up. So when they're on the way there, they're just thinking it's not that big of a deal, right?
Right.
Scott Matthews and Graham Furlongers drive to Aberdeen to investigate. These are the 2 police officers.
Okay.
And when no one comes to the door and they see the blood, they decide they're going to break in. And they walked around the side of the house and they see a piece of meat lying on the ground. And they went around the back and they're going to break through the back door. And as they're walking in, they break through this back door.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're walking in, it's dark. And the police think there's a curtain hanging in front of them.
Oh, no.
Something was blocking the entry into the hallway of the house. It looked like a blanket covering up an archway. And one of the officers used his hand to push it aside, and he could feel how cold it was. And then his whole arm was covered in blood. And at first, this police officer thinks, I've injured my arm breaking through this back door.
Right.
But that's when they realize what they thought was a curtain was a human skin pelt.
Jeez.
It was the full skin suit of a man, head to toe, hanging from the top of the door frame on a meat hook.
Wow.
They look past it, and they see a skinned torso on the ground. No head, no genitalia, no skin. The body was arranged with the left arm draped over an empty 1.25 liter soft drink bottle. It's Shelley's Club Lemon Squash. Never heard of that soft drink before, but somebody in Australia has.
Yeah.
And that's what his hand is draped over. and his legs are crossed. But mind you, he's completely skinned from head to toe.
Yeah.
Well, no, I can't say head to toe. Sorry, I didn't mean that, because he does not have a head.
Right.
These two officers, Matthews and Furlongers, they draw their guns. There's blood everywhere, and there's a line of blood from the door to the kitchen where they find a stock pot on the stove. It's like a scene from a horror film, right?
Yeah.
And in the kitchen on the table are a couple of plates. They were prepared meals with vegetables and meat, and they were marked by name for John Price's kids. And the police continue to search this house, and they can hear snoring coming from a bedroom. And they walk in and they find Katherine Knight asleep on the bed. She's all drugged up. She's groggy. They couldn't wake her up. So they carry her out of the house and into the back lawn, and they call an ambulance. Now, they believe she's swallowed a bunch of pills. And in fact, the lead detective on this case will find a bunch of pills in the house. But before Katherine swallows all those pills, she's killed John Price.
Right.
She stabbed him 37 times and skinned him in one piece and then cut off his head and boiled it on the kitchen stove with vegetables, then hung his skin from the meat hook. And the police are like, this pot is still warm. So she cooked it early that morning.
Right.
And there's blood all over the kitchen and these meals sitting on the table. And the police said that these meals were like a trophy. She wanted to feed their father to them.
Wow.
And she had served up their father with a combination of baked potato, pumpkin, beetroot, zucchini, cabbage, yellow squash, and gravy. Like, she had peeled these things. There were peelings in the sink. Like, she was cooking a dinner, only it was him. Right?
Man.
And I have to say, this reminded me of high school English class where I learned about Procne and Tereus in Ovid's Metamorphoses, because Procne's husband, Tereus, rapes her sister, Philomela,
Take two.
and cuts out her tongue so she can't report the crime.
Wow.
And when Procne discovers this, she takes revenge by killing her and Tereus's young son, and she cooks the boy's flesh and serves it to Tereus at a feast. And afterward, Procne calls for her son, and her sister presents Tereus, her husband, with her son's severed head,
Ugh.
revealing the truth that he had just eaten his child.
Wow.
And that's what it made me think of.
Sure.
Now, Kath didn't finish school, was basically illiterate, but I had to wonder if she knew this story because it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
Regardless, she's cooked John. There are these 2 place cards, one for each of the kids, and her plan was to feed John Price's children to their father. Now, a third meal had been tossed in the backyard, and investigators thought that perhaps Kath had meant to have one for herself, but she couldn't or wasn't able to eat it. But maybe she had planned on eating her partner.
Wow.
Now, again, Kath, who couldn't read or write, had left a handwritten note on top of a photograph of John. It was bloodstained. It was covered with small pieces of flesh. And it read, "Time you got back Jonathan for raping my daughter." She spells daughter Douter. "You to Beck," who is Jonathan's daughter, "for Ross, for little John," who is his son. And then it says, "Now play with little John's dick, John Price." She's crazy.
Yeah. What do you think? Good
Now,
Lord.
these accusations of John Price raping anybody are going to be found groundless.
Right.
But once they get Kath to the hospital and she's more awake, a man named Bob Wells interviews her. By the way, they've collected all the fingerprints and handprints and DNA from the crime scene.
Right.
But they also talk to the neighbors and friends, and they know that Katherine Knight did this to Pricey. They're like, he warned everybody. He said she was going to do him in. If he never showed up, that she had killed him. He knew what was coming.
Right.
And Bob Wells interviews Katherine Knight, but all she really says is that she can't remember anything. She doesn't give the authorities any information about what happened. However, she will eventually accept that she's killed John, but she wants the authorities to believe that she killed him because of the severe ongoing domestic violence that she had incurred during her life and with Pricey and with her other partners. But she's never going to admit flat out to murder.
Man.
But authorities had this video that she made with her children where she was leaving pieces of property to her kids, and she was planning on killing him. Her black lingerie was found in the bathroom where she'd showered, and they took samples from under her fingernails. But police believe she killed him, skinned him, and then took a shower, then stole John's wallet, takes out the $1,000 from his account. By the way, they never found this money. So she was either planning to get away. She was completely sane and with it after she does all this.
Right.
She showers afterwards and takes his money, right?
Yeah.
But as for Kath's domestic violence claims, all they had to do was talk to other people who knew her and her first husband, David, and her second partner, David, and her third partner, John. It was all the same story. She was the one who perpetrated the domestic violence. Quote, "These were blokes who were pulling the shirt across after they'd been stabbed by her. I mean, blokes who had their heads caved in with a frying pan. And it's even harder to imagine when blokes like these, hard Aussie blokes, but they were, lived in fear of their lives. They had simple needs, beer at the end of a hard-working day, and a woman who was there for them at home, somewhere nice to stay." End quote. Cheers and beers.
Cheers and beers.
So he's saying these are grown men who are physically strong, and they are reduced to trying to hold themselves together, literally and figuratively, after being stabbed, rather than immediately going to police or leaving her.
Right.
They were all afraid of her.
Man.
There were reports that after Pricey's body was found, there were officers who just quit the force.
Really?
We're done.
Yeah.
There were officers that were interviewed who said, "I didn't eat meat for a couple of years." Katherine Knight initially offered to plead guilty to manslaughter, but that offer was denied. She was arraigned a year later on February 2nd, 2001 on murder charges, to which she entered a plea of
Not guilty.
not guilty.
Oh,
Really? You had the man's DNA, flesh, and blood under your fingernails, dude.
Man.
I actually read the full report on how she skinned him,
Yeah.
where she started and finished, but it was in all in one piece, and the whole thing, including his face. If you want to read it, I'll send you a link.
Wow.
But she cut his head off after she skinned him. So it's like a full skin suit. And she had done it so expertly that after the autopsy, they were able to reattach his skin to his body.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They sewed him all back together again.
Man.
Her trial was set for July 23rd, 2001, but was pushed back due to her own attorney's illness, and the trial date was again set for October 15th, 2001. Justice Barry O'Keefe offered the 60 jury prospects the option of being excused because of the graphic nature of the photographic evidence, and 5 of them said, "I'm tapping out.
Not for me.
This is not for me." After the jury was set, the next morning, Katherine Knight's attorneys approached the judge to say that she had changed her plea to guilty, and the jury was dismissed. Then Judge O'Keefe ordered a psychiatric assessment overnight to make sure that Katherine understood the consequences of her guilty plea, because they knew her attorneys had planned to defend her by claiming she had amnesia and disassociation, like she had personality disorders.
Yeah. Okay.
They found her sane in her psychiatric evaluation.
Right.
There's never been a reason given for why Katherine Knight changed her plea to guilty, and even though she did plead guilty, she still refused to accept responsibility for her actions that day. And at the sentencing hearing, Dr. Timothy Lyons took the stand to describe the skinning. This is what I read. I read the whole thing, the skinning and the decapitation. And Katherine became hysterical and had to be sedated. Personally, I think that was all an act. I mean, she knew exactly what she was doing.
Sure.
I mean, this skin apparently was like millimeters thick. That's how good she was with these knives.
Jeez.
And remember, this is a woman who liked to watch the pigs get decapitated. Yeah. And she once slit the throat of a man's puppy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The fact that she got hysterical in court over that, whatever.
Yeah.
On November 8th, 2001, Justice O'Keefe pointed to the nature of the crime and Katherine Knight's lack of remorse as a reason behind his sentence of life in prison without parole. Quote, "The last minute of John Price's life must have been a time of abject terror for him, as they were a time of utter enjoyment for her. She has not expressed any contrition or remorse, and if released, she poses a serious threat to the security of society, end quote.
Yep.
The judge ordered that her file be marked, quote, never to be released, end quote.
Wow.
And that was the first time this penalty came down for a woman in Australian history.
So she's got that going for her.
So she does. Katherine Knight would appeal the life sentence, claiming that it was too severe. Really?
Jeez.
Really?
Well, I wouldn't expect anything less from someone like this.
She would be denied.
Yeah.
Today, Katherine Knight is incarcerated in the maximum security Silverwater Women's Correctional Center in Western Sydney, New South Wales. Among the other inmates, she is sometimes called the Nana. She now has white hair and reportedly is a quiet, older woman. Reports from inside the prison over the years have suggested that Kath has taken on an informal elder role. She mediates disputes between people and she participates in prison routines. My guess is that they do not allow her to work in the kitchen with a knife.
Yeah. Smart move.
But that is the tragic story of John Pricey and the story of Katherine Knight. And that's all I have to say about that.
Well,
aren't you glad I'm not very good with a knife, honey?
yeah.
All I do is cut my fingers with knives.
Yeah,
We get really sharp knives and I'll start cooking in the kitchen and I cut my fingers all the time, which just means I'm not paying attention. I'm thinking about true crime while I'm cutting up carrots or something.
Well, Kath, it's one of those situations where it's like, why didn't somebody intervene in this whole situation, knowing that she was just mentally unstable?
I'm just here to tell you, they were all afraid of her. She would fight people. She was throwing hands at the pub with the men. And to her credit, her mother, Barbara, said, you don't turn your back on this one. She's got a screw loose. Here's my advice. And she was not kidding. And she was 100% right.
Well, the other thing, too, is why would these guys take her back? I mean, what is...
I just have to think that she was a tomcat in the sack.
Yeah.
Her and her black lingerie showing up. I think it was just, maybe she was just irresistible to these men. I don't know. Beer goggles? Don't know. I don't know. Who could say? It's tragic all the way around. Thank God. I mean, I hate to say this, that only one man died, because theoretically she could have killed all four of them before I think she wasn't smart enough not to get caught. But yeah.
All right. Well, let's move away from Katherine.
I'm sorry, everybody, about the puppy, the skin suit, all of it. I'm sorry.
Well, let's do a little bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right, number one. A German bank robber sent mocking emails to local police ridiculing their efforts to arrest him. First, he let them know that they had his age, build, and accent wrong. Then he corrected their announcement that he had escaped on foot. No, he had a getaway car.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, the cops got the last word in, though. When they arrested the guy a few hours later, they used his email to trace him.
Oh, my gosh. You got it all wrong. But here's my Gmail account.
Yeah. All right, number two, Burrito Patrol.
Burrito Patrol.
Burrito.
I love a good burrito.
Yep. Adon Juarez Ramirez.
Oh, my gosh.
I know.
You're just rolling those R's like nobody's business.
Had it all figured out. He could be a cop without having to take the boring test. But he was arrested in Grapevine, Texas, after pulling over a driver in his pickup truck, outfitted with flashing lights. He even had an ID badge, which he had made by blacking out a restaurant gift card and etching the word police.
I thought you were going to say it was like a Blockbuster video card.
It's better. However, he kept the restaurant's logo, a jalapeno pepper surrounded by the words Chipotle Mexican Grill.
Chipotle is delicious, by the
It
way.
is. All right, number 3, and finally.
Finally.
Is that really your nickname? When police in Vancouver, Canada asked to search Jason Pache's apartment for drugs, he was not a suspect. In fact, they were looking for someone else. That all changed when they got a look at how his name was listed on his cell phone. Jason Pache, drug dealer.
Oh, well,
He was arrested and charged.
it's like, how you can tap your iPhone and give your information to another iPhone person?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's what his was, drug dealer.
Exactly.
Here's my number.
Oh, man. Well, there's your idiot criminals for the week.
I still like the Chipotle card.
I know, isn't that awesome?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, well.
Well, if you have a bless your heart or you know somebody's heart who needs a blessing, all you have to do is go to hitchedtohomicide.com, and when you get there, there's a pull-down menu, and while you're there, you can suggest a case, just like John from Australia.
Cheers and beers, John.
Cheers and beers to you, suggested this one, or you can tell us about your brush with true crime.
Mm-hmm.
That's my amazing husband out there.
That's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitched to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.